So they asked for a recording. So it'd be amazing if you could.
No problem. I just started the recording.
Perfect.
That way, once we get started, I actually won't forget to activate it, which has happened before. How you doing? How's everything?
Like Joseph was saying, it's rough. I mean, it's hard to keep yourself motivated sometimes. How about you?
Yeah. We've actually been busy. So we've started seeing a bit of a resurgence in the pre-construction market. Like we've done about $6.5 million worth of deals in the last 4 weeks.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, which is nice. And I've been speaking to some of my colleagues at Baker, at Melbourne International Homes. Like they're seeing that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, because we work with developers, all of the developers have really pushed their launches to the fall, to like
Right.
September, October.
Right.
So right now is the time where we start to work on those developments. Like 4 or 5 months in, we're starting to work on on the floor plans, on the marketing campaign. So we're actually really busy, but that's only because we have a big pipeline in the fall.
Right. So how many projects do you think will be coming out in the fall? You think there'll be like a whole bunch all at once?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot, like more than usual.
Yeah.
But only if has pricing and interest has recovered, because developers will cover it in the presentation, but they're not feeling a lot of pressure to sell. They can't afford to discount, right?
Right. Right.
So they would almost rather wait a year to see the prices pick back up than sell at a discount.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So we'll really see how the economy and that situation evolves over the next couple of months.
Makes sense.
Okay. I think we'll get started, and if as people join us, I will add them on.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me just open this up and share my screen with everyone. Okay, give me 1 second to get set up. If you see me look to my left, that's where the chat box is, and that's where you guys are. So don't think that I'm So this is our room, and here is our chat. So I'm just going to ask all the participants here. I just typed a hello message on the chat box. It should have populated a flashing icon for everyone. This will be the chat box that we'd use for everyone here to ask any questions if you have through this presentation. So the intention of this presentation really is just to cover the pre-construction industry and the statistics that relate to it and where we're at today. But this is really not a very formal thing. It's really, so if you have any questions, don't wait to the end to ask. You could just type it in the chat box, and if I feel like we are not going to cover it, I will answer it at that time, or maybe wait to the end. But the big reason as to why we wanted to set this up in the first place was really because when you're looking for data in real estate, it's very easy to find it for resale, because resale for the most part trades on a public platform, MLS, and you can really access that data in real time. Accessing data in the pre-construction market is very, very hard, because all of the trades that are happening, all of the sales that are happening on a private platform. It's happening in sales centers. It's happening with developers that don't report those numbers. So it takes us about a month to come up with the data for this presentation because it takes so long to get the appropriate numbers. So I wanted to share it with everyone because it's important to understand what our pre-construction market is doing and how it's performing right now, and how we expect it to evolve in the coming months. So we'll talk about kind of the macro dynamics of the market, some of the activity that we've seen. We'll talk about resale activity as well. What are the important things to watch for as it relates to COVID-19 and the economic impacts of it? How we've responded as far as working with our pre-construction agents and their buyers. We'll have a Q&A, and that will be it. So I think within 45 minutes, we'll be able to cover this whole thing. So our team at PSR, we're a brokerage that specializes in working with real estate developers directly. We represent multiple developers across the GTA and even beyond. And really our strength is really in our relationships with brokerages like yours to collaborate and work together through many of the exciting projects that we have in our pipeline. As far as Q1, the data specifically, in March, we've seen only 3 launches come to market. And that's because a lot of the launches really happened in February. And as that came together, then, the developers started feeling a little less confident about the market situation in March, and only 3 of them that really had to launch have launched. That was Notting Hill with Lantera, Mattamy launched a project in Oakville, and Artistry by Tribute has launched as well. Those 3 projects brought a total of 624 units into the market, and before the end of the quarter, they were 66% sold. Now, some interesting high-level statistics. We have currently 286 projects under construction in Toronto that make up for about 77,000 units. The really interesting number, though, is that 92% of them are sold, which means that, a question that I get asked often really by agents and their clients is, there's so much supply coming into the market. Like the market just has too much pre-construction going on in the GTA. My answer to them is pretty simple. Every crane that you see in the sky represents 92% of the units in that project have already been sold. So yeah, there's a lot under construction, but there is not much unsold supply coming into the market. If you're looking at the pre-construction side, which is projects that haven't started construction yet, but have started sales, that makes up about 40,000 units in total, and 80% of them are sold. So between the 80% sold for the pre-con and the 92% sold for the under construction stuff, you see that developers are actually at a really good position as far as their sales sides, because to start construction, they need to be about 70% sold. You see that on average, we're 80% sold. So many projects have already fulfilled their minimal sales obligations to begin construction, which is a really great sign because, again, it speaks to the fact that there isn't actually much unsold supply in the marketplace. As far as the remaining inventory specifically and how that evolved, we started the year in January with about 16,000 units in remaining inventory. The red bar represents the high-rise sector, and the orange bar represents the low-rise sector, which are private single-family homes. We've seen kind of like a 2-to-1 ratio between the two for a total of 16,000 units in remaining inventory in January. In February, we've seen that rise to about 17,000 units. And luckily for us, we've had an incredible first quarter, and we've seen the inventory levels drop significantly down to below 14,000 units. 10,000 of them are high-rise, 3,800 of them are low-rise, and the 10-year average is 15,000 units. So we're below the 10-year average. Really, really good place to be, especially at this point in time with the health crisis that we're surrounded by. If you compare this year's March to last year's March, we're significantly below that as well. So we're from an inventory perspective, we're at a very good place. As far as monthly sales specifically, So for monthly sales, we've seen a strong start to the year. We've sold 2,100 units in total in January, and that was a pretty even split between high rise and low rise. Compare that to last year, we've sold 1,275 units, so about an 80% increase there. In February was really the big story of Q1. We've seen many new launches. Unbelievable quarter as far as sales. We've sold over 4,600 units in February alone. Again, pretty even split between high rise and low rise. And that's 3 times the amount we've sold in February of last year. So the year got off to a really strong start, really early. And March was another great month. We sold over 3,700 units compared to 2,200 units last year. And all of these 3 months combined to a record-breaking quarter, second best quarter one on record in the history, second to 2017. We sold 6,300 units in total, 1,500 units more than the 10-year average for high-rise. But the really interesting part is that 80% of the units that came into the market in Q1 came in February, and 70% of the units that were launched in Q1 were actually launched and sold before the end of the first quarter. So really unbelievable quarter as far as how that Q1 performed. I see Jay joined us. Hi, Jay. Nice to see you. New home benchmark pricing averages. So again, the red bars represent the high-rise sector and the orange bars represent the low-rise sector. On the low-rise side, we've seen very little change. It's been at 1.1 really for the last year, more or less. So not much has happened there. The pre-construction side has obviously seen tremendous growth year over year. So in March of last year, we had an average benchmark price of $780,000. In March of this year, we were at $983,000. So 26% growth year over year. I often am asked, is this a really good time to buy? And is this a good time to invest in pre-construction? To answer that question, I took a long, hard look at how has the pre-construction market performed over the last 25 years. And I actually found something really interesting. Since 1997, so for the past 23 years consecutively, every single year, even through the early economic crisis in the early 2000s, even through the major economic crisis of 2008, 2009, every single year since 1997, the high-rise market has always seen an increase in value. Even through those really tough times, high-rise pre-construction has always been increased in value. So that is something that's really important to understand. It's partially true because, or for the most part, it's true because developers actually dictate where that pricing is going to go. And when the developer commits to buying a site, they buy it based on how much they think they can sell the site. So if, for example, if I bought a site for, that I think I can sell for $1,200 a foot, there's no way I can make that economically work for me if I have to reduce the price to $1,100 a foot. There's just no way, because my land cost is fixed. The development charges and all the government levies are incredibly high. Those are fixed. The construction costs have been on a rise and those are fixed. So developers can't actually afford to lower pricing. And so that's why you're seeing constant growth in the market, because developers are controlling the inventory and they're saying, if I have to sell at a lower pricing, I may as well just wait until the market picks back up. And then they pull supply out of the market. As far as the year-to-date supply, we could see January this year to January last year pretty much on par. The real big story again is February, where we've seen a massive amount of launches. We've seen 4,300 units come into the market in February and another 3,200 units come into the market in March. Total year-to-date supply sits at about 8,600, and you can see how that's split between low-rise and high-rise compared to 4,900 last year. But the real big story, obviously, in addition to high-rise, is the low-rise sector that's been struggling for a couple of years. In Q3 of last year, we've started to seeing that really grow. We're starting to see a lot of demand for that sector, particularly in the suburbs. Markham, Vaughan, Mississauga, Brampton, Milton, we've started seeing that kind of resurgence happening again. And so that was really pleasant to see. Obviously now everything is kind of slowed down, but fortunately prices have still remained stable. On the completion side, so when you're talking about macroeconomic factors, you always have to consider supply and demand. Coming into this year, it was supposed to be the best year in the history of the GTA as far as how many units are completed, meaning how many units are done and ready for the owners to move in or for them to be rented. Coming into this year, we were expecting 29,000 condos completed. Just to put that in context, the highest we've ever delivered in a single year was in 2014. We've delivered 21,000 units. So we were expecting to have a real record-breaking year, like 40% higher than what the best year we've ever had. So we've delivered 4,700 units today, and we were expecting another 25,000 units for the balance of the year. Obviously, that has now slowed down significantly because of the construction work on site has been undergoing at a significantly lower pace due to social distancing measures and making sure that obviously everyone is safe and are in a good health condition. So we're expecting that to slow down, going down from 29,000 expected completions to probably about 20 to 22,000 completions. So still a great year in completions, but what that creates really, again, is a big shortage in supply that's coming into the market, because you think you're going to deliver 29,000 units and you actually deliver only 20,000 units. That does have an impact on the supply out there and the pricing that goes with it. As far as how the inventory breaks down by construction status, so there are three statuses. There's pre-construction, there's under construction, and there's the standing inventory. On the pre-construction side, so out of all of the units that are currently in the marketplace, now keep in mind, for context, it's really important to understand, there's 110,000 units under construction or in pre-construction, 110,000 units. Only 5,600 are available in the pre-construction side. Only 4,200 are available under construction. And as far as actual standing inventory, you only have 201 units available under standing inventory. So just think about that number. You have over 100,000 units in process and only 200 units in standing inventory. That makes up for about 2% of the total inventory. The under construction inventory makes 42%. Those are units that will be delivered probably within the next year to 4 years. And pre-construction makes up for 56% of it, units that are going to be delivered between 3 and 6 years. So developers feel like they're having a lot of time to weather the storm and a lot of time to sell their units, because there's still years before they have to occupy. As far as how the sales data breaks down, we're having the sales by municipality. We're seeing obviously Toronto is the most active submarket with 1,500 units. Then followed by Vaughan, Brampton, and Mississauga, which are really the top kind of three markets after Toronto. And what you're seeing, in the other section, those are kind of third tier market as far as high rise goes, like Oakville, Milton, Burlington, the east end of the city. So what you're seeing is the $1,000 or higher price per square foot range sees the most trades. And that correlates directly to the fact that Toronto is seeing the most trades. When you're looking at 800 to 900 square foot price categories or 700 to 800 square foot price categories, that's obviously tied directly to the fact that Vaughan, Mississauga, and Brampton are trading in those price points. So again, there's a correlation there. The most popular unit that sold in Q1 was still the one bedroom and den. We've seen those units make the lion's share of trades. Surprisingly, to those who may not be in the industry, but to those that are, this is actually not a surprise. 2-bedroom units have followed closely and were almost the most popular selling units in Q1 there. The reason to that is really versatility and affordability. So many people who want to live in a city can't afford a house. They need a 2-bedroom. They buy a 2-bedroom unit. It's also really versatile for investors. You could live there with a roommate, with your life partner, with a young family. You could downsize into it. So we're seeing a lot of interest in 2-bedroom units. And actually, for the last 4 weeks, we've sold about $6.5 million worth of inventory in our projects. All of them, every single unit we've sold since this crisis has started has been a 2 or 3-bedroom units, which is really interesting. As far as the resale data, we've examined that as well, and that is important to understand because you do want to understand how the resale market is tracking. What we've seen, and Joseph had mentioned it earlier in the call, is just a massive drop in volume. And I want to make sure that I dwell on that for a second so that you can communicate to your clients that the sky is not falling. It's just not the right time to buy, and it's not the right time to sell, but the prices are holding very, very steady. So we're seeing a massive decline in volume, 67% lower than last year. But if you look at it, if you look at the listing activity, we're seeing the listing activity declined to 64%, by 64% from last year as well. And that's been really the saving grace in the market because the sharp decline in volume coupled with the sharp decline in inventory have actually helped prices remain stable. So the average sold price is slightly up from last year. But the really important statistic is that the asking to selling price ratio is still sitting at almost 100% sales price to ask price, which means that the sellers out there are the ones that have to sell. The buyers out there are the buyers that want to buy, and they're all buying almost at 100% of ask. So you're not seeing someone listing a home for $1 million and ending up selling it for $900,000. No, those transactions are not happening. What you're seeing is someone listing their homes for $1 million and getting, $995,000 or $1,000,005, like somewhere around their asking price, because that's how the market is projecting right now. This page and the next page will just outline what I think are some of the important things to watch for the next few months, both from an macroeconomic perspective, and obviously from a pre-construction perspective. So I do see that the halt in new construction, which has been lifted to an extent earlier this week, it is making a difference. Like, we're seeing supply under pressure because we're unable to build as quickly now. So we're not going to be able to deliver as many units into the marketplace. We're seeing a massive pent-up demand for trades, and that has an impact on construction pricing. So the fact that we have a shortage in trades is not good for construction pricing, which in turn will have an impact on pre-construction prices. But also add to that the cost of building goods, that it's on the rise, because many of the building goods, a lot of the marble comes from Italy or India. Many of the kitchen cabinets that you buy in pre-construction condos come from Italy as well, and Europe. Appliances come from Europe for the most part. We're having a ton of hard goods come from Asia. Door handles and toilets and faucets come from Asia. So with the supply channels being interrupted, it takes that much longer for the goods to come into Canada, and when they come in, they're more expensive because there's less of them coming in. So that will have an impact on construction pricing as well. We're obviously having an employment situation that we have to consider. So in March, we've seen 1 million Canadians lose their jobs, which is the single highest increase in the unemployment rate that we've ever experienced in our history as a country. RBC projects the unemployment rates to reach about 15% by the middle of this year, and then we'll start seeing it tamper down over the following 18 months. We're going to hit rates below 7% in early 2022. So, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's just going to take us some time to get there and make sure everyone's back to work. The nice thing is that earlier this week, the province had already lifted some of the restrictions and have allowed more businesses to open. So we're already seeing people going back to work. On the right side here is just the true economic impact of this crisis is currently somewhat understated and underfelt because of the quantitative easing measures. The government is injecting billions into the economy in a variety of different ways to make sure that Canadians aren't struggling economically to, pay their bills and put food on the table. So we're seeing business wage subsidies to encourage businesses to keep their employees on their payroll. We're seeing small business loans, commercial rent reliefs, emergency response benefits, increased child benefits, and many others. So because Canadians right now are getting free money in a way from, obviously it's taxpayers' money, but in a way free money from the government for a variety of different uses, they're not really feeling the full economic impact of this crisis. Many of these programs are 12 weeks, and we'll see what happens at the end of those programs. If the government decides to pull some of them back or all of them back or extend them, we'll see how that plays out. But if they do pull them back, then we'll get a real understanding of what the economic impact is. We're also seeing that the lending environment has been tougher. Tighter lending criteria are in place, of course, but the upside is that it is a very, very low interest rate environment. So once people do get back to work, we're expecting the economy to recover because of the low interest rate environment. Physical distancing measures obviously are preventing people and businesses to operate in normal capacity. On the pre-construction side, most of the projects at this point had postponed their launches to the fall of this year. So we had a great Q1. We're on pace to hopefully recover by the third quarter of this year. But right now, everyone's kind of putting everything on pause. So developments have moved to operating virtually, and we're going to see that new construction starts from this point on will decline materially. The rental market, by the way, guys, I do encourage you, if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat box. From the rental market perspective, that's really an important factor to understand. We're seeing that ever since the end of last year, we've already seen the rental market soften a little bit. And rents were slightly at a year-over-year growth, even through the early part of this year. What's really playing a huge role is the fact that we're not allowing tourists into the country at this point. So Toronto right now has 7,300 Airbnb units, short-term rental units. And when you take out tourism and you're not getting visitors to come into the country for a week or 2 weeks, those Airbnb owners aren't able to fill in their vacancies. So what a lot of them are going to start doing is they're going to take their units from the short-term rental pool and actually convert those units into full-term rental units, which will have an impact on the rental market because it will create more supply. Demand right now is already down just because of the social distancing measures. So we've seen, far less activity, and we are seeing a little bit of pressure on pricing. So prices for rents did drop by an average of about 3%. Finally, we have the immigration. So immigration, pretty much the international borders are closed. Immigrants are not allowed to come in at this point. In between immigrants and non-permanent residents and foreign workers that come here, and in migrates, people from various parts of Canada that come into GTA to live and work. Usually we're getting about 150,000 of them in a year. They make up pretty much all of our population growth, and really are a huge driver as far as our demand side. So we want to keep a close eye on that and seeing when the country starts to open the international borders again and allow immigrants to come back in, and that also, of course, we also want to see international students coming in as well, because that's a huge driver, especially for the rental market. How have we responded? So from our perspective, technology was always a focus. And so we're available virtually every single day of the week via Zoom, email, telephone, or SMS. Our online portals are fully updated with floor plans, pricing, all the marketing collateral that you need to sell our projects. We even entertain personal appointments in small groups. Those are just subject to a screening process. So we want to make sure that neither you or your clients have traveled recently or have been exposed to someone who has. If we do meet in person, our team will provide all the gloves, face masks, and sanitizers that are required to make sure that we keep everyone safe. What does our upcoming pipeline look like? So there's a couple of really exciting things in here. So first of all, Galleria on the Park by Elad Canada. Elad is obviously a developer with a great track record for building master plan communities. Galleria on the Park is one of the most exciting master plan communities in Toronto. It's actually just last week has been nominated for both Project of the Year and Community of the Year, which are both very prestigious award. The award ceremonies are in September, so let's hope we have some good luck then. But what you're going to get here is you're getting 8 buildings for about 3,000 units. You're getting a massive 20-acre park, which is 360,000 square foot park. It's like the largest new park that's coming up in Toronto's core. You're getting the largest brand new community center in Toronto at just under 100,000 square feet, 300,000 square feet of retail in a form of almost like an outdoor mall, similar to Shops of Don Mills. So it's going to be a really transformational community. We launched the first 2 buildings at the end of last year. They've been an unbelievable success. We're actually launching a special release of 1-bedroom and 1-bedroom units right now. So I'm gonna send Mickey the released inventory. I'm gonna send Mickey the new inventory. All of the units that are on the revised hot list have literally just been released, just been made available. All of those layouts have been previously sold out. The developer just saved about 25 of them for a later release, and we want to do that now. So lots of product in between, the $600,000 to $700,000, and we're expecting them to do really well in a short period of time. So I will make sure to send that to Mickey, and Mickey will distribute it along. We also have a special release at our Annex project. So this is a really special project. It's a really unique one. It's a small boutique building, 115 units at DuPont and Spadina. That's, dab smack like Toronto's core. We have Casa Loma and George Brown College right behind the building. And we have UFT. This building is on the subway station. So we have UFT 1 subway station away from this building. It's a few minutes walk, or you could just hop on a subway and take it 1 stop south and you're at UFT. So there's only 115 units here. And what we're doing is the building has 41 bedroom units in total. We released 20 of them late last year, in November of last year. The 1-bedrooms were the first ones to sell out. We released half of them last year. The 1-bedrooms that we released last year all had obstructed views. The 1-bedrooms that we're releasing now are the other 20 1-bedrooms. They all have unobstructed views looking onto Casa Loma. We have units looking right into the CN Tower. And we're excited to share that with you as well. So, sorry, my son is about to come into the room. So, yes. You see, Abba, is it working? Do you need me urgently? Yeah. Can you switch your costume? You don't want to be Batman anymore? Okay, here you go. I opened it up for you. Go. Okay, okay, here you go. Okay, done. Can you close the door behind you, please? Sorry about that. He wakes up in the morning, he wants to be Batman, and by lunchtime he wants to be Superman. So like, what am I gonna do? Anyway, so we do have that. Eliza. Finally, I get some responses from you guys. I've been talking for an hour. No one said anything. I will address the issue of Crestford later this presentation, Joseph. So as I mentioned, the 21 bedroom units that we will launch have all unobstructed views onto Casa Loma. We have some amazing units looking south as well into the CN Tower. Unobstructed views, just absolutely stunning. You could see what our south views look like. So some of the units that we're going to release are these 485 square foot units with unobstructed views. We have units all the way to 2,000 square feet. They will be a part of the hot list that we'll distribute to everyone. But you could get a sense, like our floor plans are very, very unique. You could buy 700 square feet with 30 feet of windows. Both bedrooms have a window, 2 bathrooms. Just beautiful, beautiful layouts. And all the way, we have stuff at 700 square feet, 800 square feet, 900 square feet, 1,200, 1,500, and 1,900. So a lot of amazing units to choose from in this new release that I'll share with you guys, hopefully later today, if not, then Monday. We also have Key 1 coming, which is 36 luxury townhomes in Mount Pleasant and Eglinton. Homes would range between 1,500 to 3,000 square feet. They all have either rooftop terraces or backyards, starting at about $1.5 million. So this is launching probably early June, but I want to make sure to urge you, if you think you have a client that's interested in this project, please don't wait till we launch to reach out to me. Let me know now. I'm going to give you all my contact information at the end of the presentation. Let me know if you think you have someone interested, so we could have a meeting with them in over Zoom, but an intimate meeting just to take them through the project, because there's only 36 townhomes here, and it's not going to be like a massive launch. It's really going to be a targeted launch for people who are interested. So don't wait for it to launch. Let me know now if you think you have someone for it. This is at Mount Pleasant and Eglinton, right by Sherwood Park, which is a massive park in the city, on the LRT line and all of that. In the fall, we have the 3rd building coming to Galleria on the Park. So it's this corner building here. There's just around 450 units there. So this is the next phase of Galleria, and it's coming this September. Another project that we're really excited to bring to market is Options for Homes. So Option for Homes is a developer that's been around for about 25 years, and they have a really unique model. They actually want to encourage people to buy real estate. So what they do here is they allow your buyers, normally when you sell pre-construction or your buyers buy pre-construction, you need 20% down. So if you are looking at a $600,000 unit, you need $120,000. You need 20% in deposits to secure the unit. What Options for Homes does, it actually allows your buyers to buy with only 5 or 10% down in pre-construction. So, for those of you who have kids or who have friends that are currently renting or, looking to upgrade their place to a larger place, or for those of you who know someone who's looking to downsize and they haven't managed to save up 20% down payment, this is a really rare opportunity for them to buy pre-construction with only 5 or 10% down, and that's it. And it's amazing. So it's very rare because Options for Homes only has a project launching every 2 or 3 years. So, we're gonna, they've selected us to work with them on their next project. There's gonna be about 550 units here. So there's about 550 units here, and we will be launching this in October. So again, stay tuned really, really closely for this, because this is a really special one as far as the opportunity for people who would otherwise never be able to buy in pre-construction. This is an opportunity for them to really get into the market. And then at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, in the fourth quarter, we're going to have Grand Park Village as well, which is a project, 1,300 units coming to South Etobicoke. Mimico Go station is right beside us. The Lake Ontario is just south of us, so we're overlooking the water. Stunning project, really beautiful architecture. There's a massive park that's getting built right beside the site. So really excited to make you guys a part of that as well. So as you see, if the economy does pick back up, and I hope and am optimistic that it will, there's going to be plenty to keep everyone here very busy in the third and fourth quarter of this year. So we're going to address some of the questions that came up in the chat. Before I do, I want to make sure you all kind of get my contact information. If you have a question that you don't feel comfortable asking on this form, feel free to follow me on Instagram and send me a direct message, or send me a text message, or email me. I'm happy to help and answer any questions that you may have. Obviously, you can also get in touch with Mickey and Jay. Both of them know how to get a hold of me. Jay is like guilty as charged. But yeah, feel free to add me on Instagram and DM me if you have any questions. Obviously, if you still have questions, type them in here. So let me talk about a couple of the questions that came up. So we have a question from Joseph about the issue of Crestford and the confidence in buying pre-construction. So that's a great question. The Crestford issue really didn't have anything to do with the current crisis. The issue with Crestford is far deeper. I worked for Crestford for 5 years, from 2008 to 2013. And so I'd like to think that this all happened because I left, but it's not actually the case. The issue with Crestford was the fact that they were far over leveraged, and they didn't conduct their business in with the integrity that's required as far as what's been presented to their lenders and to the buyers as well. So whether COVID would have hit or not, Crestford would still find themselves in the exact same situation. So I do think it did have a slight impact on consumer confidence, but it's important for us, because consumers automatically tie it to COVID. It's important for us to understand exactly why it happened and communicate to our consumers that it actually had nothing to do with COVID and just a lot to do with mismanagement. We have a question for average prices for Annex. So Annex pricing is, again, the project is in the downtown core, right on transit, one stop away from UFT, just like in an amazing location. Units there you can buy for the most part between $13 and $13.75 a foot. And I think that's a really great proposition considering the location there. We have Sandy, who's calling me Robin, which is always nice. Sandy, asking about Q1. So floor plans and price list. Again, if you feel like you have a client that's interested, I'm happy to show you both floor plans and prices, but it's not something we're blasting out because it's okay, Sandy. It's not something we're blasting out because it's a really, really small project. So we do want to make sure that this brokerage is a part of it. There will be a broader launch that's happening in June, but again, if you feel like you have a client that's interested, make sure you add me on Instagram, send me a message, and let's set up a time for us to meet with you and your clients over Zoom and take them through the offering. Then we have Gian, I think. Gian asking about, do you think COVID-19 will keep people away from condo living? And two, what impact to Toronto The sidewalk. Okay, that's a fresh one. So the first question regarding the impact of COVID-19 on condo living, no, I don't think that will ultimately have an impact. I do think that, the world will enter a new normal. The life that we've known before will probably change to an extent. But you're already seeing it. Many of the condo buildings downtown are installing plexiglass in front of their concierge buildings, like just taking those precautionary measures. But at the end of the day, there's hardly any housing options outside of condos in Toronto's core, and people want to live in the core. So I think it may have a short-term psychological impact, but in the long term, I don't think it will play a part. As far as the sidewalk slabs, from a PR perspective, that's a big one for sure, because that was a really sought after project, but it made like a little tiny fracture of what the overall developments that were happening in that section of the city. It makes for a very, very small part of those. So again, this is one of those things that from a media perspective will be a big story. If you really understand it, yes, of course it sucks. It's not, it's not ideal to lose Google's interest in creating that project here as a pilot project. They were also looking into renting, I think it was 500,000 square feet of office because of this project. So it does have an impact, but I don't think it's a major one outside of the PR section in there. Another question that came up is, will COVID-19 put some builders in a difficult situation financially? So I do think that you're going to see the smaller developers or newer developers without meaningful financial backing. I do think that they'll struggle probably in the next 12 months. The big developers, the more formidable developers, are probably in a good place. If you're under construction, you're probably in a good place. If you're under construction and you're not delivering for another 24 to 36 months, you're in a really good place. The only ones that are under that do have some risk to them are developers that haven't hit their construction thresholds and haven't started construction just yet. So I don't think there's going to be a massive impact, but there may be a small one. Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions at all? No? I'm going to unmute everyone. So you could just jump in now. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Wow, I did such a great job. I'm flattered.
Thank you.
Okay, so on that note, I want to just take a second to thank Jay and Joseph and Mickey for helping me set this up for everyone. I hope that you found this to be useful. Again, if you want to ask any questions, if you have questions about Q1 or anything, feel free to add me on Instagram, text me, email me, and I'll try my best to help you as best as I can.
Awesome. Right. Could you send me the recording for this as well?
Yeah. I'll edit it and send it to you by the end of the day. I'm actually just jumping on another meeting in like 5 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. And we'll be in touch and hopefully talk soon.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Bye. Take care.